Hi everybody, right, I'm back with another electrical job shortly after doing my bathroom switch, so much bigger job this time round. What I want to do is add a security light to my driveway. I was trying to figure out the best way to get power to it because I haven't got a socket on that wall in my bedroom, but luckily enough I have a walk-in cupboard that's directly above the fuse board in my bedroom. So the game plan is to add an extra MCB to the consumer unit. I was just going to put a 6 amp one in, means it's just for a light, but then I thought while I'm at it I could do with an extra socket in my bedroom, so I thought kill two birds with one stone. I'll put a 16 amp MCB in. I'll do a radial circuit. I'll first do a double socket just outside the walk-in cabinet, and then I'll run another cable either along the wall or under the floorboards if they're not too hard to get up, for the lighting circuit. So I've got the double socket, I'll do that first, then I'll run a power supply to a fuse spur. I'll just put a 3 amp fuse in there, means it's just for lighting. I'll drill straight through the wall from that point and I'll be just about where I want the light fitting. So that's the game plan. Don't think it should be too hard to do. That's a 10 watt LED floodlight. I was humming and ahhing whether I should go for a 10 watt or a 20 watt, but now see how bright this thing is, I'm glad I just went for the 10, because a 20 watt would have been way too bright. I stuck a plug on the end of it just to check how bright it was. So give you a quick demo of just how bright this little thing is. I was surprised because we have some small ones at work which I was expecting it would be about the same brightness, but this is way brighter than what we got at work. Daytime now, so it's a bit hard to see, but trust me, it's like really, really bright. I was very surprised at just how bright that was. Doesn't look so bright now because it's daytime, but believe me, it is bright. That was only I think £11.50 or something like that. Nice compact little unit with a sensor on it. So that's the game plan. Hopefully it will all go well. This will be the first time I've ever messed about inside a consumer unit, but these look pretty straightforward to fit. Get a little bit of information on the side about them. 2.3 Newton meters you're supposed to do the screws up to. So I did borrow a torque screwdriver from work, but now I've got home I've just realised there must be a plate where you can see them 4 holes. I think there must have been a plate on there because it hasn't actually got any markings on it. So I'm going to assume that first main notch is 1 Newton meter, and I think it's going up in halves then. So we shall go by that, and I'll just go by my judgment, obviously how tight it is, but it shouldn't be a major problem. Right, I just thought I'd show you how these MCBs lock on to the back of the DIN rail. So you will hook this top bit over the top and then the bottom will sit in place. Before you try putting it on, you see at the bottom of the little bit there to get a screwdriver into. You just pop that down, you brought that little lever down, which is this section on the back. So when it's sitting in place, you've got the top half locked on, you then push that button back up and pop that into place, and that's what will lock it on. You can actually just push that down by your finger rather than using a screwdriver if you want to. Right, just thought I'd show you that bit quickly. Here's the consumer unit it's going to be going into. Something they recommend you do a couple of times a year, about every 6 months, but probably none of us ever do. I know I don't, because you don't think about it. Maybe I've maybe done it couple of times over quite a few years, but not on a regular basis. But I'm assuming these must be MCBs for the lighting circuit, as I've got test buttons on it rather than your standard MCB. So if you press the test button, it will actually show it's operating and it should switch off, as that one has. So that's the lighting ones. And then you have the RCD is protecting the two sockets, the upstairs. Actually, one's sockets for the whole house actually, and the other one goes to the boiler. So that RCD is protecting these two sockets, and same again, you have a test button on there. So they reckon about every 6 months you should test it. If you press this and it doesn't switch off, then the RCD is faulty and therefore isn't giving you the protection that it should do. So working again. So the only problem with doing this is everything you've got plugged in, clocks and whatever, you're going to have to reset any digital clocks you got and stuff like that. So before you kill this is the main power switch into the fuse board. Before you do that, when you watch any professional electricians' videos, they always say you are supposed to turn everything off before you just kill that. If there's quite a bit of power, quite a lot of stuff turned on, then there's quite a bit of power going through that switch, so it's safer to turn everything off so there's not really anything current passing through that now. The power's to it, but it's not a big load on it. Then it's turn that off. And for extra safety, we're lucky enough to have a main isolation switch. So that's the cables coming direct from your meter into the main switch. So if you're ever doing any work on the board, if you're like doing a complete board change, then you can just turn that off. And now you can completely take that off, whereas a lot of houses you won't actually have this. So then you are actually supposed to call the main electricity board in to pull that main fuse out. So it's quite handy having that. So I know I'm extra safe now. I've got it completely dead. I will test it before then. Right, I'll just grab a few tools. Actually, I've undone the lid already. So it's only a screw either end of the cover. So that comes off easy enough. And we can now see inside the fuse board. I shall grab the MCB and we can snap that into place. So I've got that little tab down. Just get my little pen. I know it's going to be dead because I've turned everything off there, but just check this is working. So flashing there because we've obviously got power from the meter to that main switch. But then when we come up here, we can see this is all dead. That's slap bang on the DIN rail there. So it's always best to check before you check something. Go on a live source so you know your penny's working, or a multimeter, which I would normally use, but I've just tried to turn it on and I think my battery's flat. So you test it on an own source so you know it's working, and then you go and test whatever it is you're trying to test to check it's dead. And then when you're finished, you go back to an own source again to make sure it's still working. So can't be too careful when it comes to electric. So the bottom of that is going to snap on to one of those little brass tabs, and that's where your power's coming from. It's coming out of your main switches or your RCD and straight across into there. So you just snap it on top of this rail. Get a good shot of this. bit fiddly one-handed. I think that appears to have locked on nicely. So I've never done this before, so we'll just get that back off and double check. Get a little bit more light on the seat. There you go. That's a bit better. About the dodgy camera work. So you're snapping hook onto the top of that rail. You do kind of need to, actually need to come down quite straight on this one to get it. So that'll be that, and then it'll be tighten that up to 2 Newton meters. Making sure I've definitely got that in place. Yeah, on this particular board you do have to come down pretty well dead straight on it. Alright, I finished being butterfingers and dropping my MCB. So I've never done this before, so I should probably have had a little trial run before messing about, trying to film and trying to do something for the first time. So I don't have all boards are the same, but on this one you do actually have to come down pretty well dead straight to slot in, and you just have to tilt the top forward a little bit just to drop on. And by the way, when I said I'd touched the DIN rail directly before with a bolt pen, actually that's the DIN rail that you hook the MCBs onto. That's known as a bus bar. So that's the thing that's bringing the electricity all the way across to all these individual things. Then the cables going in the top, that are the cables that are running through your house to the various things. So that's sitting in place now. So don't really be able to see under there, but just get that little tab I was on about, and that's it now, sitting securely on there. Just got to do the screw up to lock it onto the buzz bar. So I think I've got this screwdriver set to about 2 Newton meters. So it appears to have some of the numbers missing off it. I think there should be the main thing with the numbers and then the little bits in between. But let's see what we click at. I'll go by my judgment, how tight I think it is. I clicked on that one then. I reckon that's about right. That was good and tight. I had a little click out of that. I reckon that's going by the little notches. I'm pretty sure that's around about 2 Newton meters, which is what it's saying. So just give it another little tweak. Yep, that's good and solid, that's not going anywhere. Right, that's on. Now I'll go above in my bedroom in the big walk-in cupboard and I can see straight down to these wires, so dropping a wire down I think should be fairly simple. Might be a bit of a wiggle just coming in the top of the board, but it shouldn't be too tricky. So it will be the live cable into the top, neutral cable will be going on this side and mirror wire will go on there, and you're supposed to match these, where are we? You count along how many MCBs you got and then you're supposed to put the cable to the same one. So I've got 4 circuits so far. So this one's going to be number 5. So neutral will go up onto the number 5 on the neutral. Looks like I've only got one in the air for some reason. Oh no, that one is not doing it. That one is not splitting into 2. That's just going to continue counting up. So I'll be able to work that out, not a problem. Right, onwards and upwards. Okay guys, this is us up in the bedroom now. So this is our walk-in cupboard in the bedroom. So the only socket I have in this room is actually behind that cabinet, which is obviously awkward to get to if you want to do the vacuum or something up here. So got a bit of 2.5 twin and a half cable, which is what's going to go into the MCB. So you can see where we're just going into the top of the fuse board there. I've just fed this cable down. I'm just roughly in the top now. I'll pull it down from the bottom, and the game plan will be to come across now. Get this crap out of the way. I will drill down into the back of the skirting board, which will come out down in that hole, and I'll get connected up. Then I may go to the trouble of lifting the floorboards, so I'll have my double socket there, which will be handy to have, and then roughly middle of this dressing table I'm going to put the fuse spur. So I should be coming out and putting a floodlight on the wall just to the left of this window frame, and that will give me pretty good coverage over my driveway over night time. Just sometimes you drive in at night time, it is quite dark, like when I reverse onto the driveway. I can do it, but a little bit of light will be useful. So the main reason for doing this job was for the security light, but then I thought, well, if I'm going to the trouble of doing it, I may as well put myself another double socket. And so I've just been looking at this walk-in cupboard is slap bang above the consumer unit. So that's the game plan. I'll see if I can pull that cable through. I might end up having to take another little notch out the top of the consumer unit, maybe to the left of where the main wire they're going in. I'll go down and see if I can pull that through. Alright guys, I can see the wire coming down. This is the one. Zoom out a bit. So that's the cable coming down. Just see it moving about down here. So a bit tight in here, so ideally it would probably be easier to take another notch out the top here and come in about here. But I'll have a play, see if I can wiggle it across here without doing that. So I won't bore you with that bit, because it'll just be a bit of fiddling fighting through all these wires, but I'll give you an update. Alright guys, I was really struggling to get that wire to come through all that lot over to there, so in the end I've gone up back in the bedroom, and there's various knockouts on the top of this board, so I just knocked out the next little tab along, so it's just a nice straight run into the board. Make life a bit easier for myself. These are a very handy tool, CK wire strippers. If you ever forget how much they are, they're only about a tenner, but they are really good rather than messing about trying to cut cables with Stanley knives and things and trying to avoid cutting inside the inner wires. I'll just get this on first. So just straightforward, really good on the outer sheath. Just pull. Bit hard doing this one-handed. So the further up the wire you cut, like the tougher it is to pull the insulation off. So you can take it off in little chunks. Makes life a bit easier for yourself. You start a bit lower down. Pulls off easier then. Bit tricky one-handed guys, but it comes off easy enough. You can sort of go along, because if you haven't got these, then you tend to end up using a Stanley blade and trying to cut round it, but you always run the risk of hitting the inner cords. For £10 they're well worth having. Right, I shall fiddle about and sort the wires out, and I'll give you an update. Okay everybody, I've just got this finished now, so hasn't been too bad, probably because it's only got a few circuits in here. It's not like absolutely rammed full of wires, whereas there's been another 3 or 4 circuits already on there, then obviously it would have been a lot more wires to fight with. But after I put it through the hole in the consumer unit, so the wires coming through pretty much exactly where I wanted it to be. Stripped off the live, I've cut that just right so that you can't see any bare copper coming out, so I've judged that perfectly to give it a little trim, so I know that just below the surface, and it's clamped down on the actual copper of the wire and not the insulation, so you do have to be careful of that. If you cut this a bit short, the actual insulation would go down into where the clamp is, so that could give you problems with the wire arcing, so you do have to make sure you cut that just nice. It's not too hard to do, you can pop it in and judge where you are. So that's the live feed into the top of the breaker. Here's the main cable coming through, so we'll put the earth wire on, put the sleeving on as you should always do. That's clamped down nice, and here's the new neutral wire, and that's also clamped down, so make sure you check your screw tightnesses and that you've got good solid connections, because if you have a loose wire then you run the possibility of a bit of arcing going on, and then that's where you could potentially find your fuse board catching fire. So I haven't found this too hard, but I will say obviously with electrics there's obviously the possibility of danger. So if you've never done any electrics, then I would say definitely this is not the job to start with. But if you've done a few things over the years, you've added sockets and things like that, then this is just 3 connections at the end of the day. You've just got to make sure you've got them all connected good and solid. You can see on this board, if I wanted to, I've got room for another 6 circuits on this board if I wanted to. Shouldn't imagine I'll need to. It's only a 2-bedroom property, so I don't need too much. So that's the board side of things done. Now it's a case of sorting out the socket in the bedroom, which again I don't imagine will be too tricky to do. If I just drill down the back of that skirting board, then I'll be able to bring the wire up there. So I'll probably break this video into 2. I'll have this as one video, then I'll probably do actually wiring the socket up and the fuse spur for the LED and floodlight as a separate video, so it's not too long. But yeah, I haven't found this too hard. I'm confident I've done this safely, and that those wires are all nice and secure, and there's not going to be any problem with them. So up to you whether you'd want to tackle something like this, but I would say if you do, only if you're really confident in your ability to do so. Right, that's it for now. Catch you later.